This video uses the DealerTool aftermarket software program and looks at the Triumph Trophy and shows the various settings and readings, values, etc. that can be performed. I have the DealerTool connected to my Trophy. All I need to do now is turn on the ignition and then read the ECU data, making sure that the bike's run switch is in the run position. Clicking on ECU data and then read ECU data, it should all connect up, which it has done. So we go back to the main page. The first tab we'll look at is the sensor values. Click on that and it brings up 8 pages. The first page, page 0, shows the various readings. You can see the engine's not running because of 0 RPM. Throttle is at 2%. There's no one sat on the bike, nobody touching the throttle, so that will be the idle position of the throttle. Coolant temperature, the sensor voltage coming from the coolant sensor, idle steps, target idle speed at this temperature, being a cold engine, it shows 1584 RPM. Twist grip is shown at 0%. If I operate the twist grip, you can see it goes up, that's at full throttle to a maximum 94.9%, and letting go returns back to 0%. Outside air temperature is 15 degrees and the air temperature sensor voltage is 3.34 volts. If we go on to page 1, you've got the settings for the 3 fuel injectors and the ignition coils, which obviously all at 0 because the engine's not running. Page 2, various voltage settings, including, you see the fuel sender voltage there. I don't know if that varies with the level of fuel in the tank. I would imagine it will do. Coil dwell time is at 0 again because the engine is not running. Shows the gear that's selected. You can use this to check the gear position sensor. So there we're in second gear, and pop it back into neutral, and the gear sensor voltage and obviously the road speed at 0. Going on to page 3, we have the map sensor readings, the manifold absolute pressure sensor readings. Sensor 1 is at 4.014 to 19 volts, just fluctuating there, and it shows my battery voltage, which looks a bit low. The barometric pressure, the air pressure at this location, and the voltage from that sensor. On to page 4, we have again the voltage at the twist grip for the 2 sensors. We're at rest at the moment, so operating the throttle again from the idle position now shows 1.01 volts and 0.68 volts. And operating the throttle from rest 1.01, full throttle 4.5 on twist grip number 1 sensor and 1.76 on twist grip 2. Back to idle 1.01, 0.68. The TPS figures are the throttle position sensor at the engine end, showing 0.73 and 0.68 volts respectively, and you can see those also change at full throttle to 1.79 and 1.76 respectively. Close that back down. The number 2 voltage is the adjustable throttle position sensor for setting the idle speed, and the manual gives a recommendation of the voltage range that should be within, which I will note in the text later. Mine is showing 0.68 volts. That may vary from the specified setting voltage due to the adaptive nature of the engine management system. It also shows that the closed throttle is adapted and the twist grip is adapted. So that means the ECU has examined all the parameters and set them up and is happy with them, and it's a phrase that they use for Triumph to say that everything's good. So that's page 4. Moving on to page 5. As you would expect, the fuel pump, cooling fan, low fuel light and the starter relay are all off. The management information light, or the engine management light, the mill Triumph call it, is on because the ignition is on, the engine is not started. I've got my side stand down, the clutch switch shows that the clutch is released and the neutral switch shows the gearbox is in neutral. Again, if I were to operate any of those, for example the clutch, we can show that the clutch switch check works. If I put the side stand up, it shows the side stand switch works. And similarly with the neutral switch, now shows it in gear. And that's the safety interlock part of it rather than the gear position indicator. Page 6, the fall switch in the back of the bike says it's okay. PCV solenoid is on, headlight relay is off because the engine is not started. Secondary air injection solenoid is on, starter button's off and the main relay is on because the ignition's on. Again, you can start the engine and show that the headlight relay is working, for example, and the starter button should change to on while it's cranking. Page 7, the brake switch 1 and 2. If you operate the front brake switch, interestingly both indicators change to on, and it's due to the strange way that Triumph have wired up the brake circuit. If you operate the back brake switch, number 2, only number 2 will change to on, which is the one that works through the relay. Cruise control on off switch I've got set to on, the acceleration and deceleration button and the cruise cancel twist grip switches can all be checked at that point. We'll go back to the main page from there and have a quick look at some of the others. Throttle balance, engine's not running so it doesn't give any parameters for that. We'll go back to the main menu. Check faults. Here it will read to see if there are any management system faults. Triumph call them DTCs for dynamic trouble codes, which everybody else calls them fault codes. But it will read the ECU and see if there are any. We're looking for P0000, which is that shows there are no fault codes. If there are any, they'll be listed there. If they're a fault that can be cleared, pressing that button for clear fault codes will clear them. But of course, if you haven't fixed the fault, they're going to come back. There's more information on the forum about what the different codes mean and various other information. Let's go back to the main page and we'll move on to test modes. Here, as you can see, you can check all of those different items. So select each one, fuel pump, cooling fan, etc, etc, and then run the test. So for example, if we want to look at the ride-by-wire motor open and close, highlight that, click on run test, and it's checking the butterfly valve for operation. You can actually hear it moving while the test is in progress, and at the end of it it says test complete. It doesn't give any indication to me that there's a problem. I don't know if any error pops up on that test if there is a fault, because I haven't had one. Go back to the main page. ABS. This is a system where to bleed the brake fluid fully you have to open the ABS valves to bleed all the old fluid out of the ABS pump. This allows you to do that, but should be performed in accordance with the instructions given in the main service manual. It will also let you connect to the ABS unit and display any fault codes that are stored. But we're not going to do that because we're not worried about that today. Instruments tab. You can reset the range until the next service. So if you performed a service yourself and you want to set a 10,000 mile service interval, change that to 10,000. Click on rewrite instruments and it will set your service interval reminder for in 10,000 miles time. Down the bottom is a new feature that was added at request of the forum, so that you can enable and disable the instrument panel display icons for the heated seats and heated grips. Some owners were finding that they bought a bike, fitted heated grips, but the icons weren't displayed on screen. This allows you to fix that, and similarly with the tyre pressure monitoring system, you can enable or disable the on-screen display should you have a low battery on one of your sensors or both of your sensors and decide not to replace them. Rather than have the annoying warning messages every time, you can disable that from this screen. We'll go back to the main page. Options is really for setting up the program. Select the COM port available on your computer and for registering your key for the program. So we're now going to start the engine. And we'll go back, if you can hear me now over the engine noise, to the sensor values. I'm going to go straight to page 4 to show the O2 sensor operating. If we look at page 3, the map sensors are now showing the figures and voltages now that the engine's running. We go quickly through the other pages. Page 0 for the RPM, throttle percent, twist grip percent. Again, if I rev the engine slightly, you can see how the figures all change accordingly. Page 1 now shows the figures for the fuel injectors and the ignition coils. Again, this is with a currently cold engine. Page 2, information is much the same there, other than we've now got the coil dwell time showed. We've already looked at that one and that one. Page 5 now shows the fuel pumps on, which we need. Cooling fan's still off, and everything else is still off. Those are all much the same, and so are they. We go back to the main page. Now I'm just going to look at the throttle balance, and you can see that within 1 or 2 points they're all the same reading, 68, 66 or 67, and the message to say that they're balanced, which is good. Going back to the main page, with the engine running, it shows you that the engine and kill switch must be in the normal run position, but the bike should not be running to perform any of those tests. So don't try doing that, he won't like it. So we go back to the main page, and that's pretty much all I wanted to show you today. So I'm going to close the program down, turn off the bike, and we'll go and see about posting this video onto the forum.